There are times when people don't leave because they're tired. They leave because they realize that nothing is going to change. Not after the meeting where their concerns were politely noted. Not even after the report that confirmed what everyone already knew. Not even after the election that promised change. And when they finally do walk out, they don't make noise about it. They don't protest. They don't issue statements. They simply take their experience and walk out the door. And the system never quite recovers. In the last episode, we spoke about a form of corruption that doesn't steal money, but quietly destroys institutions from inside. Today, we're looking at one of the most serious consequences, the loss of skilled public servants who once kept the state functioning. This is a story about people who tried and eventually stopped. This episode asks a difficult question. What happens to public institutions when capable people stop trying to fix them? And why is that loss far more dangerous than it actually appears on the surface? When people talk about the state failing, they often imagine faceless bureaucracies. In reality, institutions are held together by specific people, not heroes or saviors, but professionals. I'm talking about engineers who understand how infrastructure actually works, administrators who know procurement well enough to prevent disasters, healthcare managers who keep hospitals functioning despite any shortages, and educators who build institutional culture and continuity over decades. They are hardly ever public figures and they seldom get thanked publicly, but they are the connective tissue of the state, and without them, systems do not just slow down, they unravel. Contrary to popular belief, most public servants don't actually leave at the first sign of trouble. They stay. They stay through budget cuts that make their jobs harder. They stay through political pressure that tests their integrity. They stay through resource shortages that force constant improvisation. They adapt. They document problems. They escalate concerns through formal channels. People usually leave much later, when something much more serious happens. They leave when their expertise is repeatedly ignored. They leave when failure is protected instead of corrected. They leave when accountability flows downwards but never upwards. They leave when integrity becomes a liability rather than a value. This is not burnout, though. This is disillusionment. When skilled people leave, the damage is not always visible immediately because, vacancies can still be filled, organograms can still be updated, but something else disappears quietly. When experienced public servants leave, they leave with institutional memory. They take the historical knowledge of why systems were designed a certain way with them. They take those informal problem-solving pathways that never make it into the manuals, right? They take lessons that were learned from past failures that could prevent new ones. They take relationships that allowed departments to function across silos. Once institutional memory is gone, there is no policy document that can actually replace it. And rebuilding it takes years, if it happens at all. One of the most dangerous myths in governance is the idea that capacity can be rebuilt quickly. In reality, it really cannot. New hires often need years to understand complex systems. They frequently inherit broken processes with little guidance. They are expected to perform immediately under intense public pressure. Meanwhile, acting appointments multiply. Consultants replace internal expertise. Costs increase then while outcomes decline. So this isn't inefficiency then, it is erosion, and it is slow, it's expensive, and it is deeply destabilizing. Here's a governance literacy skill that voters are not really taught but desperately need. When we are evaluating institutions, let's not listen to leadership speeches only, right? We need to look for signs that are beneath the surface. Is leadership stable or constantly changing? Are skilled staff leaving at high rates? Is the institution dependent on consultants instead of internal expertise? And when it comes to whistleblowers and professionals, are they protected or sidelined when they raise critical issues? High turnover is not reform. This is a warning sign. Every election comes with promises to fix what is broken. We hear commitments to improve service delivery, to rebuild institutions, to professionalize the state. But capacity loss changes what is possible. Even good plans struggle without skilled people to implement them. Timelines will stretch, expectations will start to collapse. When expertise leave, the state starts to become dependent on consultants, on contractors, on short-term fixes. That dependency is not inefficient. It is actually just expensive, and it weakens public accountability. In the next episode, we are going to look at the gap that elections often widen instead of close. The gap between what politicians promise and what they actually have the power to deliver. Because understanding that difference may be one of the most important voter skills of all.